What is up, everyone, and welcome to another special edition of The Danny Show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and this is where I give commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. Thank you guys so much for joining. As you know, today is another special day because, as promised, today on August the 20th, we celebrate the day of Walter, aka Gunther. To be honest, in my humble opinion, I much prefer he kept his original name, but nonetheless, let's celebrate him with my top 10 favorite Gunter matches. We start at number 10 with Walter versus Rampage Brown on an episode of NXT UK Prelude. This date, April 8th, 2021. This was a pretty good one because Walter had survived Rampage's strength. We saw Rampage go for a power slam off the top rope, but it would take a power bomb and a splash to keep Rampage Brown down. And he had to do all of this because Rampage kicked out of the first power bomb. Next, at number 9, we have Tommaso Ciampa versus Walter. Yeah, he was still Walter at the time before he changed his name for some god unknown reason. But in any event, Walter versus Tommaso Ciampa at number 9. This took place also in 2021, right before the match with Brown. And this was at Stand and Deliver. This match was a match where Walter won the match with the same move that he broke the announce table with, because earlier in the match, Walter was set to go for a chop that broke the top seal of the announcer's table. Now, if that could do it to a table, imagine that what it could do to a person. We found out later because despite Tommaso shaving his head and bringing back the original Psycho Killer, because he was growing hair right here and he was starting to grow that granddad hair right here, but he had cut all of that out and brought back his original self. After he did this, they had a great match together, and it took two power bombs because Tommaso kicked out of both two in a row, and that chop that broke the table to help Walter win and retain the NXT UK Championship. Next, at number 8, we have another good one between Walter and Joe Coffey at NXT Blackpool 2. This was also a really good one. Yes, we saw interferences a bit from Imperium and an accidental miscommunication through Walter's ally members, but nonetheless, that didn't impact the match as they continued to have a great match together, both Joe and Walter together. And of course, Walter would end up winning this match via submission. Now, I will say this: Walter was the longest reigning WWE NXT UK champion, and he reigned for about over 2 years. But fun fact, for the most part, if you look at his reign, sorry WWE Empire, if you're watching, this is not to be offensive, but one of the great things about this match is that unlike Roman Reigns, Walter defended his championship most of the time on his own. You look at that championship and you look at him being the current Intercontinental Championship, even though he is heel, he defends on his own. Like Godsmack, he stands alone in the ring. No disrespect to Roman Reigns. I just wish Roman would win a match on his own. Jesus Christ. But in any event, this was a good match. And speaking of Imperium, after Imperium stood tall after the victory, Undisputed Era would make a surprise appearance, ending off the show attacking Imperium and standing tall. Members being Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly and Mr. Fish. However, because of this, it would lead for them to have a match at NXT take at WWE and NXT Worlds Collide at 2020. This would be next on this list at number 7. We have Imperium versus Undisputed Era, and it was a great match. Great 8-man tag. Now, there was an unfortunate incident that took place where Alexander Wolf, who is also a member of Insanity, would get injured and could not continue the match, putting Imperium on a 3-on-4 disadvantage. And Walter was also put through the announce table during that match. Nonetheless, Walter would not only come back from that, but get the decisive pinfall for his team in the Worlds Collide 2020 main event. Next at number 6, we have as Gunther versus Drew McIntyre at the recent SummerSlam event. This was good as expected. We saw Walter, or Gunther, should I say, had to survive having his move stolen, the powerbomb, and the Claymore. However, he came back from both of that and they continued to have a good match. We saw some chops because it is not a match without chops. And also, this review should be called The Red Chest Diaries. Now, while I don't have my red book by me at the moment, I still remember everything by heart. And in the this episode and countdown of the Red Chest Diaries, we saw Walter go up against Drew for the Intercontinental Championship. And after surviving those moves, it took a splash and a powerbomb, just like with Rampage Brown, to keep Drew McIntyre down and retain his Intercontinental Championship, in which he is one of the greatest IC champions and the longest reigning one of this generation. Next at number 4, we have Walter versus the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne before they changed his name to Butch for whatever God knows, God unknown reason. But we have Walter versus Pete Dunne at NXT TakeOver New York 2019. This is where Walter would become the NXT UK heavyweight champion by defeating the then champion Pete Dunne. Now, of course, anytime you have a match with Walter versus Pete Dunne, anytime you got Pete Dunne, you got to expect some fingers to get snapped. Just like with Walter, you have to expect chests and anything else on the skin to get slapped. That's why we call this the Red Chest Diaries. And also, it took a splash and a lot of other different moves to keep Pete Dunne down. Now, Walter would survive Pete Dunne's finisher and having his hand snapped, fingers snapped multiple times. But despite all of that, this time Walter would go for a super power bomb followed by a splash to keep Pete Dunne down and would win the UK Championship and establish one of the longest, if not the longest reign in NXT UK history. Now, if you really want to look at a match that personifies this special episode of the Danny Show called The Red Chest Diaries, you have to look no further than this match at number 4, which is Walter versus Dragunov on an episode of NXT UK. Just 2 days before Halloween 2020 during the pandemic, we saw something red and bloody. That match was smash mouth, in your face, and everybody walked out sore and red. And we saw Dragunov, his whole chest was red. Walter was a bit red as well. But that's what happens when you got two people who are smash mouth, slapping each other in the chest, chopping each other on the back shoulders, and slapping each other across the face. This was brutal without chairs or any weapons. All they needed was these open hands because closed fists are illegal scriptedly in WWE, but the hands, all they needed was them. And they used those hands good. And let's be honest, Braun talks about getting hands. Walter is the one with the hands, literally, because man, everyone's chest was red, everyone was swelled up, everyone's face and everything was just red. This match was awesome. It was one of the top matches of WWE 2020, period. Not just NXT UK, but it was part of the WWE countdown as well of list of great matches in 2020. However, due to sleeper hold, Walter won this match, putting Dragunov to sleep, retaining the NXT UK Championship. But this match right here was also great. At number 3, we have Walter versus the big strong boy, Tyler Bate. Now, first of all, let me just say the fans were awesome that night. The way they chanted for Tyler Bate, that was great. Now, if you look at the size difference, you would think that Tyler Bate is at a huge different disadvantage, but that was not the case at all. If you look at this match, you will also see that Tyler showed an incredible amount of strength. And I asked you guys, some of you saw it last year. I asked, what was your all time favorite Walter slash Gunter match? Many of you said, C Nation Dog, you said the match between Tyler and Walter. While in the short, I claimed that the Dragunov match was awesome. But after C Nation Dog, you told me that, I went and checked it out. It was awesome. Tyler Bates showed an incredible amount of strength. Of course, we saw the chops and Walter being Walter. However, this match was fire. And this match went nearly 50 minutes. Nearly 50 minutes of awesomeness. But this match was great. And of course, however, it was ours truly, Walter, who would win the match and retain his NXT UK Championship and what was one of the top NXT UK matches that he had. Walter, I'm speaking of. Next, at number 2, we have Gunther versus Sheamus at Clash at the Castle. Need I say more? This match was great. I will say this. I was kind of expecting the fans to be 50-50 since both men are from our European wrestlers. Sheamus being from Ireland and Walter, or Gunther, should I say, being from Austria. However, the, most of the fans were for Sheamus. Nonetheless, great, excellent match. This was considered one of the top matches of 2022 last year. It didn't take long for Sheamus to get a red chest, and it didn't take long for it to be very smash mouth and in your face. Now, Sheamus was set to go for a brogue kick at the end, but because Walter had, or should I say, Gunther, had worked on his back and targeted his back during the match, especially body slamming him through stairs, it didn't work out. But Sheamus was competitive as well. Walter survived a Celtic cross along with a couple of beats from the Balor, not just in the ring, but on the barricade as well. But nonetheless, after Imperium and the Brawling Brutes fought off to start the match, they would end up having a 5-star classic. And even though Sheamus lost, got a standing ovation, that was the night that fans turned Sheamus face. Nonetheless, Walter was Intercontinental Champion, as he is right now, and won the match after Sheamus blew his back out, went for the power bomb, 1, 2, 3. But what is number one? Now, before I get into number one, let me give you an honorable mention, and that was his performance at this year's Royal Rumble, surviving from number one and almost winning. Now, had Gunther won the Royal Rumble, that would have been on this list. But since he didn't, I'm just going to say his performance at the Royal Rumble this year was awesome. And he's probably, with that performance, he should probably win one before retiring. But with that honorable mention, let's get into what's number one. What's number one will be Gunther taking on both Sheamus and Drew McIntyre at his first ever WrestleMania. Now, as it's ironic because I'm making this a joking parody, calling it the Red Chest Diaries. The original, what I'm making it a parody of, started in Hollywood. However, this match took place at Hollywood's version of WrestleMania earlier this year. The match was spectacular. Everybody, from Drew to Sheamus to Walter himself, they all put their best moves forward. But after taking a minute to let Sheamus and Drew beat the living helicopter out of one another, it was Gunther who would come in after they did the damage and take control and win this match. This match received an ovation from both Cole, Corey Graves, and guest commentator Titus O'Neil. That match, totally, completely awesome. Now, with that being said, those are my top 10 matches. Let me know in the comments below what was your favorite. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know what you think about this channel and this review. If I missed anything, let me know what was your favorite. But until next time, I'm your host, Daniel Cody. That's all the time I have for you today. And I'll be back with another review on all things wrestling. Oh, and may I just say, his weight loss, amazing, very inspirational. Eat right and exercise. Very inspirational, losing all that weight like that. And congratulations on his engagements. See you next time, folks.